Hi, I'm Brendan from Lori Beds,
And I'm Danielle.
and this is the step-by-step Lori Bed assembly video. We're so grateful that you chose to buy your Murphy bed from us, and we want this assembly process to be as easy as possible for you. So that's why we're going to show you all the pieces you'll be working with, the essential tools that you'll need, and show you every part of the assembly process step by step.
The assembly typically takes a couple of hours. A second person certainly is helpful to make things go quicker, which is why I'm here today to help out Brendan. And there are definitely some steps where you will need two people.
Now today we'll be assembling our vertical queen Lori bed in this beautiful walnut finish, but if you bought a different bed from us, that's okay. You should still watch this video. All of our beds use the same basic parts and go together in essentially the same way. And then we'll point out throughout the video the places in which your bed might be a little bit different. You can also refer to the written directions we provided and you'll have everything you need. So with that, let's get started.
Let's do it.
Let's do a quick overview of the tools you will need to assemble your Lori bed. A handheld Phillips head screwdriver. Rubber mallet or hammer. If you use a hammer, you'll need something between the hammer and the pieces to protect them. We'll be using a small piece of dowel rod in this video. You'll need a 7/8 inch wrench or adjustable wrench. Power drill with 1/8 inch drill bit to anchor your bed to the wall, plus a stud finder to locate studs behind the wall. If you don't want to find studs, you can use a 3/4 inch paddle bit and the toggle bolts we provide to install into drywall. You might also want a pair of gloves to protect your hands. It's best to lay out all the wood pieces and hardware so that they're easy to locate during assembly. All the pieces are labeled with a number, and you can see on your written instructions which pieces you have in your kit. Make sure you also have a big flat area on which to assemble the bed. Let's start with an overview of how the Lori bed connectors work. This information will apply throughout the entire assembly process, and it's important to understand it at the beginning because some parts can't be removed once you insert them. This method of connection not only makes the construction sturdy, but also makes it easy to assemble. First, the connector inserts are tapped into the large pilot holes. The mouth of the connector insert matches that in the pilot hole. Make sure these line up, because you can't remove them once you tap them in. It's best to use a hammer and something like a small dowel to tap these into place. Don't hammer directly on the connector inserts, as doing so will damage the pieces. Another option is to use a rubber mallet, which won't damage the hardware or the wooden surface of your bed. Make sure to hammer these connector inserts all the way in until they're slightly recessed below the surface of the wood. This will allow room for the color-matched covers to go on top at the end of assembly. Again, take your time when doing this because once they're in, they can't be removed. The other half of the connection, the connector screws, are installed in the small pilot holes. Screw them all the way in so that the shoulder of the screw is flush with the wood, but not gouging into it. If the screw isn't completely flush, your pieces won't secure properly and it will make them feel a bit wiggly. So as you're screwing these in, remember to make sure that each screw is completely flush to the shoulder. We recommend a handheld screwdriver for this step. A battery drill can be much too powerful and easily strip the screws. With your connector inserts tapped in below the surface of the wood and the connector screws tightened all the way to the shoulder, you're ready to make the connections. To do that, slide the screw into the corresponding connector. Insert your screwdriver at a slight angle and tighten. This will only take about half a turn to lock in place. Be careful not to over-tighten. As I mentioned before, if your parts seem a bit loose after connecting them, check to be sure your connector screws are tightened all the way to the shoulder. Now that you know how to connect the pieces, let's get started with the platform assembly. Step 1. We'll start by laying out parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the correct order. You'll notice a unique pilot hole pattern on each piece, and it's very important that these are in the correct order and orientation. Look at your written instructions to ensure that the pieces are laid out correctly and with the correct side facing upwards. Note that the mending plate pockets will be facing down at this step, and the holes will create two straight lines across when aligned with one another. Also notice that the large holes for the locks will be facing outward on parts 1 and 4 when positioned correctly. Take your time here to lay out these pieces correctly, as it will cause problems in future steps if even one is in the wrong position. Step 2. Using your handheld screwdriver, install connector screws into these boards. You will put screws in all but 2 of the holes that are on these boards. There are 2 holes to leave open in this step on parts 1 and 4, right next to the large holes for the locks. Remember to install the screws so they are completely flush with the shoulder, but not deeper. Step 3. Find parts 5 and 6. For this vertical bed, we will have 1 of each. If you have a horizontal bed, you will have 2 number 5 pieces and 1 number 6. Tap in connector inserts into each of the large pilot holes, remembering to line them up correctly and tap them in below the surface, as described earlier. To save some time, you could stop at this point and do the same thing on all the pieces in the bed, but for this video, we're going to tap in connector inserts one step at a time. Step 4. Find part number 7, which is one of the shelving pieces, and tap in the connector inserts. Step 5. Now we'll install connector screws into the small pilot holes on part number 7. Note that the vertical bed will have 4 screws here, while the horizontal beds will have 6, and on horizontals, you'll need to flip this part over first so the connector inserts and screws are on opposite sides. Step 6. Find part number 8 and install both the inserts and the screws on the same side of the shelf, whether you have a vertical or horizontal bed. Step 7. Find parts 9 and 10 and tap in your connector inserts. Most beds will have 2 part number 9s and 1 number 10 to give you 3 pieces total at this step. Vertical twin beds will have just 1 of each. Step 8. Grab part number 7 again, and using the method we discussed at the beginning of this video, slide the connectors onto the screws near the top end of parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. This will be the top shelf once the bed is closed. Refer to your written instructions to see which way the connector inserts should be facing. For vertical beds, they'll be oriented toward the top of the platform, while on horizontal beds, they will be facing the opposite way. Once in place, insert your screwdriver at an angle, and with a half turn, lock each of the connectors into place. As you do this, double check to make sure that your platform pieces are aligned at the edges. If not, you may have to check the part layout from step 1 again. A reminder here that if your pieces have some wiggle to them, that simply means that your screws are not completely flush to the shoulder. If you find that's the case, disconnect the parts and tighten all screws before reconnecting. Step 9. Using the same method, now slide and fasten parts 5 and 6 to your shelf part number 7. Ensure that the connectors are facing inward toward one another, as shown here. Tap things into place with your mallet if needed, and remember that horizontal beds will have 3 pieces to attach here. Step 10. Find part number 8 and connect to the platform like we did with part 7. The connectors on this piece should be facing away from the shelf above it. Step 11. Grab parts 9 and 10 and connect them to the platform and to the underside of part number 8. Note that the direction the connectors face on parts 9 and 10 are different, and that vertical twins will only have 1 of each part here. Step 12. With a partner, flip the mattress platform over. Step 13. With your screwdriver, fasten the mending plates into all the grooves on the platform. Note that the countersink on the mending plates should be facing upwards. Some of these may have stickers on them, and if they do, note that the placement will not be consistent. So you could peel them off if you'd like, or just keep them on and fasten them through the sticker. They will be completely covered by your mattress. Step 14. Find the row of small pilot holes along what will be the bottom of your platform. Using your screwdriver, attach connector screws into each hole. Step 15. Find part 11 and tap connector inserts into the holes. Then connect it to the row of screws you just inserted and lock it into place. The connectors should be facing away from the rest of the platform at this step. This piece keeps the mattress from sliding off when you raise your bed. Step 16. Attach L brackets using wood screws into the pilot holes as shown. Note that not all beds will require this step. If the L brackets were not included in your kit, then you do not need them and you can simply skip this step. Step 17. Install 2 mattress strap anchors in the open pilot holes on this side of the platform near the larger holes for the locks. Don't worry about getting these completely tight, as we'll need to loosen them a bit in a later step. Step 18. For the last step of the platform, we will install the locks. Your kit contains 3 locks, 2 regular twist locks, and 1 key lock. If you have small children around, or just for more security, you can use the key lock to replace one of the twist locks. So choose the 2 locks that you'd like to install. Note that there may be some extra pieces that come in your lock kits. Just use the pieces indicated here and in the assembly guide. The rest can be thrown away. Start by sliding the trim bezel over the cylinder with the lip facing upwards. Insert the lock cylinder through the platform hole from underneath. Thread the cylinder nut onto the lock cylinder and tighten using a wrench. Place the straight cam onto the end of the lock cylinder. Screw the cam securely onto the lock cylinder with a screwdriver. The key lock works in the same way. You may need to loosen and rotate the lock slightly in the hole to get the proper action. Step 19. We will now begin assembling the wall cabinet. Find parts 12 and 13. 1 hole on each piece gets a shelf pin, and then insert connector screws into the remaining holes. Refer to your written directions here for the exact number of connector screws and the location of the shelf pin. Step 20. Find part 14. Tap 4 connector inserts into the appropriate holes. On vertical beds like this one, flip the piece over and install connector screws to fill all the holes along the side of the board. On horizontal beds, insert the screws on the same side as the inserts. Again, make sure that the connector inserts and screws are on opposite sides of this piece for vertical beds and on the same side for horizontal beds. Step 21. Find part 15 and tap in the 4 connector inserts. Step 22. Slide and connect the screws of part 12 to the inserts of part 14. Then do the same thing to connect part 13 to part 14. On vertical beds, the inserts will be on the outside of the cabinet, while on horizontal beds, they will be on the inside. Step 23. Connect part 15 to pieces 12 and 13 in the same way. Be sure that the connectors are facing away from the cabinet, so they'll face the floor in the final product and you won't see them. Step 24. Find part 16 and tap in the connector inserts. Note that different beds will have a different number of inserts on this piece. Step 25. With the help of a partner, flip the cabinet over. Then fasten part 16 to the connector screws of parts 12, 13, and 14. The connectors will be facing upwards at this step so that they'll face the wall in the final product. It works best here to start in the middle, working your way outwards, as that will help align the boards more easily. Step 26. Find part 17 and tap in the connector inserts. Then stop and flip part 17 over before installing the hinge plates. This is important. We do not want the hinge plates and the inserts on the same side of this piece. The hinge plates should be installed with the hinge plate top facing toward the top edge of the piece. Note that the screw should be above the midpoint of the board here, with the hook below it. You can see here that this way is incorrect, but when it's flipped around, this is now the correct orientation. To install these, start by tapping each side in to get the screw sleeve into the pilot hole. These will be a tight fit, so take your time here. Once the sleeve is mostly in, tighten the screws using your screwdriver. Note that most beds have 3 hinge plates, but horizontal queens have 4. Step 27. Attach the hinges to the hinge plates. You can attach these by sliding from the top and then snapping the bottom into place. Step 28. Tap the hinges into the corresponding holes of part 18 using your rubber mallet. Again, avoid using a hammer directly on the hinges as that could damage them. It might work best to alternate side to side as you hammer these in. Once that's complete, bring it over to the cabinet. The small brace piece will attach to pieces 12 and 13. Note that the connector inserts will be facing upwards, and the headboard shelf piece will hang down toward the floor, as shown here. Step 29. With the help of a partner, stand the cabinet against the wall and gently move it into the desired position so you can anchor it to the wall. The Lori bed must be anchored to the wall in 2 to 4 places for safety. Ideally, you'll anchor the bed to studs, but you can also anchor into drywall. To anchor into wood studs, start by using a stud finder to locate your anchoring points. Then drill pilot holes using a 1/8 inch drill bit. Screw wood screws with a washer through part 16 and into your studs. Do this in 2 to 4 spots. We also provide toggle bolts if you need to anchor the bed into drywall. You can refer to your written instructions for tips on how to do this. If your wall is made of some other material, like plaster or brick, or you're not comfortable anchoring the bed yourself, we recommend consulting with a contractor or your local hardware store to ensure safe installation. Step 30. Install the lock strike plates using 2 wood screws, making sure that the L shape is facing toward the outside of the cabinet, as shown here. Note that not all beds will require this step. If the strike plates were not included in your kit, then you do not need them and you can simply skip this step. Step 31. Attach the mattress strap. Loosen the screw on the mattress strap anchor a bit. Slide one of the looped ends through the anchor. Then pass the buckle through the looped end and pull to secure. Repeat on the other side. Step 32. Now it's time to lift your bed into place. It's easier to do this first lift without a mattress in case you need to adjust things a bit. If you're unsure about your strength, get a partner to help. First, make sure everything's out of the way and that the headboard shelf is raised. Center the platform in front of the cabinet about 6 inches away so it has room to roll into place. Then, lifting with your legs, not your back, simply walk forward and roll the platform up into position. Keep in mind that it might take some extra shifting to get the platform in place the first time. If things aren't lining up, look at the corners and adjust with small taps until it's shifted properly into alignment. Twist the locks into place and check that they're working properly. Now that the bed is anchored and positioned properly, you can open it and strap in your mattress. Here's a quick tip. If you have wood or tile floors or the bed seems to be slipping around a bit, we find that it works well to put something like a yoga mat down before you open the bed. This prevents the rounded pieces from sliding around. That will also protect your floors as well as keep the platform in line for when you close it again. Another option is to use clear, self-adhesive rubber strips along those rounded pieces. Step 33. Apply the connector covers that were included with your bed to make everything appear clean and uniform. And there you go. We hope that process was simple and straightforward for you.
If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We'd love to help.
And thank you so much.